All right, here we are in Module 2. What we're going to focus on in this is our conversion tracking and our tech stack setup. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to spend most of our time in Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager, and that's really going to be the primary focus of this module. Now, I should say this, like every website is different on how to install GA4 and Google Tag Manager. So what I'm going to try to do is kind of talk a few different options, show you different opportunities that you can use if there's native integrations. But for the most part, you're probably just going to be doing this on your own. And what I think that you'll understand by the end of this is 100% doable. You can use the way that I am going to show you. If you have a native integration, you can use that too. There might be a combination of both. So what I'm going to do in this module is set up a brand new GA4 property, and as well as a Google Tag Manager container. We're going to take that container, place it on the website, then we're going to take that GA4 property and connect it to Google Tag Manager. So think of Google Tag Manager as basically the connection device that's connecting everything. Inside of Google Tag Manager, that's where we'll place our Facebook pixel. That's where we'll place our Google GA4 configuration tag. That's where we'll place our TikTok pixel. That is where you place your Google remarketing tag. So Google Tag Manager is the central hub for all of your tracking. And what we're going to do is push data down into GA4 as well. So let's go ahead and get started on this. I'm not going to show you exhaustively every single thing inside of GA4 or Google Tag Manager, but just enough to get you rolling on just enough to get you started on retargeting. So all right, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do though. So for GA setup, we're going to set that up first, and then we're going to pause and then go create a Google Tag Manager account. And then we're going to take that GA4 property and we're going to deploy it with a tag inside of Google Tag Manager. But before we do that, we're going to set up GA4, but there's also a couple things that we need to just go in and tweak and optimize real fast. That should only take a minute or two. And that's going to enable you to have way better audiences moving forward. And then you'll see here that we are going to come back to this when it is time to set this up for our Google ads. So we're going to create our G4 property. I'm going to show you how to get it installed in Google Tag Manager, how to get that installed on a website, and then a couple different options to see if there's native integrations. And then we'll come back to this in the future as well. So next, after that, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Google Tag Manager and set up that property. But I kind of want to give you a little bit of background on this before we jump into this. So Google Tag Manager runs off of two things, tags and triggers. So triggers, I like to think of them as listening. They're listening to these predetermined events that are going to take place on your website. Triggers could be a page view, it could be a form submission, could be a video view. In this case, we're going to use a page view URL. If they visited this page, then send an event into Google Tag Manager, into Google Analytics G4. Now, we can also use tags to send events back to Facebook. And I'm going to show you or give you a piece of tracking code that sends something in. It's called JSON. It's a tracking code that sends in a custom conversion to Meta. And that is one of the most powerful reasons why I like Meta as well, is because it can capture these JSON events where things like TikTok cannot. And it's from those JSON events that we will actually create audiences from those custom conversions that can work for top of funnel targeting, that can work for retargeting. And so I'm just going to show you the basics here. But yeah, really Google Tag Manager is the spot to be doing all of this. So this is what we're going to be doing inside of Google Tag Manager. First, we're going to create the container. We're going to create a GA configuration tag, or known as a Google tag now. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that it's connected to all pages. It's listening to all of our pages. We're trying to harvest data from every single thing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go make a conversion event. So if somebody hits that thank you page, we want a specific event for that. And we're going to make that in Google Tag Manager, but we have to send that into GA4. And I'll talk about kind of a problem with GA4 at the moment is it takes at least 1 day for that to be captured before you can turn it into a conversion. So I'm probably going to have to record this over 2 days. Then what we're also going to do is get GTM on the website. We're going to test it to just see if it's there. And then what we'll do is we'll publish the GTM container. And then as I have right down here, there's other elements that we need to inject into Google Tag Manager, which aren't hard at all. Just copy and paste and toggle on and toggle off. those are going to come in handy when we get to the Google Ads side of things. So again, just focusing on the bare bones creation here. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and started the process of starting a new analytics account. If you haven't set one up at all, just go to analytics.google.com and you're going to have this opportunity to fill one out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a Hacktics demo. So we're just going to call this Hacktics RIQ, just because this is going to be a dummy account that we won't use because we already have one. But I just want to show you what this looks like from the get-go. So something to note, make sure that you do select the right time here, because what you're going to do, that data that's coming in, you want to make sure that it's like accurate to your time zone. And so I think that's the thing. We don't want any advanced options. We don't want to create a universal analytics property because that has now been sunset. So business, we're just going to do, let's just do online, internet and telecom. Then let's go to this. I'm going to toggle all of these, create. This is a web. And then this is going to be hacktics.com, my web stream name, Hacktics website. And then we want our enhanced measurement on, and we're going to create a stream. Now this stream, this is called your measurement ID, and this is what we're going to have to deploy in Google Tag Manager. So what I'm going to do before I do this is I'm just going to go in and optimize GA4 real fast before we go to there. So I'm going to X out of this. Let's see if Jason can remember exactly where to go. So let's go to next. Continue. It says it's pending, so it's not working. We're going to go down to admin, and then we're going to go to data settings. So first of all, data collection, we want to turn Google Signals on. So we're going to get started, click continue, and just activate this. This is going to help with our enhanced attribution as well as ad personalization, and then we need to acknowledge this. So that's going to help us with our audiences moving forward. Our data retention, we want to change this to 14 months. Let's just say save. And that might be it. We will revisit audiences later on because what we're going to do is connect this to our Google Ads, but we're not going to do that yet. So one other important note here is your debug view. So the debug view is something that we'll be testing with Google Tag Manager. This is how we connect it to our Google Ads. This is where we'll go in and actually link those. But again, we'll save that until now. So those are just the quick little pieces that I've done. If I want to go back to my measurement ID, I need to click on data streams. And then I will say one thing here. I don't want to get into filtering or anything like that in this video just because things might change here, because there have been a lot of changes with GA4 recently. But if you do want to, for some reason, define internal traffic, if you want to block your own IPs, stuff like that, that we used to do in sort of the old Universal Analytics, this is the spot to do it. And then if you have anything running on subdomains, this is where you would actually configure this. So you would put this GA4 container or property on your subdomain as well as your main domain, but you would have to include the domain right here because we have just had issues with, I don't want to get too into the weeds on this, but direct traffic referral, where like if somebody comes from a subdomain to the main domain or the main domain to the subdomain, G4 loses that because there hasn't been that configuration done here. So that is something important to note, but I think we can move past that. So let's go get our measurement ID. This is really what we need. So we could... we'll just go into Google Tag Manager container, and we're going to create a new Tag Manager container. So this is so if you haven't set up a Tag Manager container, just go to tagmanager.google.com and you can create one. This is going to be for our web use, and we are going to click create. Let's do Hacktics RIQ demo. So this is the code that we need to place on our website. I'll come back to this in just a second. So let's first create this tag. So in order for me to create a tag, I need to go to tags and then new. And then I call this a GA4 configuration tag because that is what it originally was. But now they have just changed this to Google tag. So name it Google tag if you want to, or name it GA4 configuration tag if you are old school. The tag ID is this measurement ID that we just copied. So let's copy that again. So what this is doing is it's saying, okay, this Google Analytics property is now connected to this GTM property, but it's not on any website. So we're going to have to take the code from GTM and actually place it on our website. And that is where we need this is where we start housing everything though. So remember I said Google Tag Manager is where we're housing all these tracking elements. It is the central location for all of this, but we still need to connect it to the website. So now that's the tag. Now the trigger is where is it listening? What is it listening to? Well, we want it to listen to all pages in this event. So we basically want our Google Analytics sitting on every single page because it's just going to collect data. Now this isn't the event that we're going to fire. We're going to come back to that. So none of these are live until I hit the submit button and publish. This is what we'll have to do before we want this to go live. But before I do that, I want to just show you where to go find the code again. So if you click up here, this is where we find the header code and the body. And this is going to be different for every single website. And this is where I want to make this note that I said earlier. If you're running stuff on Shopify, I would definitely, there's some native integrations that I'm not going to give advice to where to place this in Shopify. Normally, though, you would go into the backend side of the code and implement this there. If you're on WordPress, there's plugins to use, and sometimes you might not always use both of these pieces. If you're on Squarespace, I think you might only use the header. So please just, YouTube how to get GTM onto your website, because I'm not going to make an all-encompassing video on every single possibility that will most likely change the second I publish this. But just know that this is where we grab the code. And I would look into best practice of if you want to deploy this on Shopify, if you want to use, I think it makes sense to deploy it on Shopify. I'm just trying to think of any other cases where you might be hesitant to do this. I think it's fine with GTM. The question is, do you natively integrate GA4 on Shopify or place it within your Google Tag Manager? I'm going to leave that up to you and leave that customization up to you. That's where I would do a little bit more research to just make sure of what makes sense to you. So with that said, these are the main two pieces, and most websites are very familiar with Google Tag Manager, so they have this. They don't have an integration per se, but you can grab this code. So like I said, I'm in, I host Hacktics on Kajabi, and so I've gone into the settings, and this is just where I would place my header tracking code, and this is where I would place that. So I'm going to actually grab this. I already copied my old code, and so we're going to just edit this and drop that in, save, and then we will take this and edit this as well. So save. Okay. So we'll click save. Now, I should be, if I go to hacktics.com, hopefully we've lost all tracking completely. It still shows, I think that's a Kajabi pixel actually. So enable record. It's still seeing all of this. So code might be deployed elsewhere. Well, there's a couple of things that I should show you, and this is why this might not be a great example. We do have, so Kajabi does have this native integration I was speaking to earlier. It has that conversion API for Facebook as well. So we are pumping through our Google Analytics through Kajabi. And so you don't necessarily need to connect your GA4 to both the native integration as well as Google Tag Manager. So you just need to think through that. But what I want to see though is this ZK5. It should not show up on our website because we haven't published it yet. So let's go to our Google Tag Manager container and we will hit submit and continue. So now this change should be live. And so now it's sitting on our website. Our workspace ends in T8. So let's go do a hard refresh. See if this shows up yet. Not seen it yet. Sometimes this does take a little bit of time. And so what we will want to see is, and sometimes it helps to open a different window as well. So we want to see K5 and then we want to see T8. So K5 and T8. Let me do this. All right. And it turns out I need to also add it to my site details. So I just put it on the checkout. So the header script looks to be that the only thing that I need right here. I'm going to add this in Google Tag Manager, keep that old code in there. Let me just make sure that, okay, FS is the one that was there before. Okay, and then I'll click save. Okay, so let's go now to a different browser, and I'm going to use this thing called Google Tag Assistant, like I said before. And so what we're going to do is we're going to refresh this to make sure that we have this T8 GTM container on the page. Now, sometimes it might take a while to do this. It might not pull it in right away, but there it is. So there's T8. So now that this is connected to the website, now we should theoretically be getting event data into our G4 analytics. And so let's go back to that. No data received yet from the website. Let's hit refresh. Still not seeing anything. So let's go to K5. Oh, again, let's just make sure that we set this up the right way. So K5, right there, it should be on all pages. We did submit this, and so let's see, again, maybe we can just refresh this. And go into our analytics. Okay, still nothing. Do we see that analytics container on our website? So we don't see, I see GL, that's a site tag K5. So it is, we are seeing this right now. It just hasn't pulled any data in yet. So if we look at this, I feel good about this. Okay, so this should just be a matter of minutes then. So I see the K5, that is the new Google tag that we've created. That's a configuration that should be on every single page. Again, you see some other ones because I've natively integrated that GA4 with this. So there it is. Our data collection is now active. So good. So what we're going to do now is we need to determine the conversion event. And I gave this example in our conversion mapping template that we have an offer that we are going to use to somebody opt into that. So as I spoke to earlier, this course is it's finished, but we need to finalize the name. But this is definitely Grant's superpower in selling. And this is basically the landing page that we just kind of cooked up as a demo for this. And so here's kind of the thought process. What we want to do is we want to drive traffic to this page. Then if somebody opts in, what we want to do is we want to fire that conversion. We're going to use that conversion and send that as a custom conversion to Meta. We're going to create a conversion in GA4. We're going to create that conversion for TikTok. And then we're also going to send that conversion to Google Ads because that's what we want to do. Then what we can do is we can retarget people who hit this landing page but did not opt in. So that's the logic here. So what we need to do though first is we need to go into Google Tag Manager and create an event. But before I do that, let me show you where we're going to be looking for this in GA4. So we're going to go to admin and then we're going to find events. Now, events are basically going to be automatically pulled in by GA4 as much as possible. You're going to see clicks, you're going to see page views, you're going to see scroll depths. But when you push one in manually, like you're seeing on this is going to take 24 hours to pull this in. So what we're going to do today in this video is we're going to create the event, we're going to push it in, but we're going to have to wait 24 hours before we actually see that event. And then once we do see that, we're going to have to come back in and we're going to have to toggle it on as a conversion. That way, when you get into your Google Analytics and you want to start sorting according to your UTM data, and again, I'm not going to get into that. You can pick up the GA4 masterclass if you want to learn how to do that. We're going to toggle that as a conversion so that we can sort our UTMs against that. So what we need to do is we need to go back into this document here. So this is what we're after. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to Google Tag Manager to create this event. I don't think I need this one open, so let's close that. So we are going to call this a GA4 event. And we're going to call this thank you. I'm not just going to guess. Story selling opt-in. Okay, so the page right here is discover the secrets to high ticket sales by leveraging the power of psychological triggers in your sales proposal. It is so good. Grant is incredible. You should see this dude in action. Anyways, the yin to the yang, right? So you have, so the nice thing about this is somebody who understands the sales process perfectly right? Because opportunities, you need to secure the opportunity, and you do that with sales. Then you have to actually deliver. And that's where my brain really is activated on all of like, all right, what's the science that we're going to put into this? And so that's why I just think these two things go perfectly together. And I would highly encourage anybody and everybody who's watching this to watch the VSL when it gets up there, look at what we have. Because if you're selling services and you can sell it for twice as much as you're selling it for now, or 3 times, or in some cases 4 or 5 times for the same exact thing that you're offering, you just need to believe in yourself and mindset. And I'm not going to get into everything that he has in there because it's not just mindset, it's psychology. I would highly encourage anybody to check this out. And you should have access, I think, to a free VSL through this course. I don't know. So anyways, so what we're going to call this, though, is somebody who opts in. And again, this name might not be what actually is the final version of this, but for now we are calling it the story selling framework, and we are going to call this a story selling opt-in. So that is the name of the event that we want to fire. Okay, so the tag that we want to use is a Google Analytics GA4 event. And so the measurement ID, I should have made this a variable. Oh well. Let's just go back into this, and I'll show you what I mean by that. We'll just do this on the fly. Create measurement ID. Let's go back into, let's just get rid of this. A variable is something that you can just use over and over and over again. So this is a new variable. This is GA4 measurement ID, and we'll just call this a constant, and we'll just paste that in. So if we want to use a tag, you could just pull this in right there. You don't have to, but that's kind of the way to do it. And so you can just reference that variable over and over and over again. Okay, so let's do this again. This is GA4 event. We're denoting that it is an event. And this is going to be a Google Analytics GA4 event. Again, we're going to make sure that we use this language all the time because our clients or our team or whoever, we all want to be using the same exact language. So story selling opt-in, we need to pull in our event GA4, and then we're going to paste that event name right in there. So that's going to pull into GA4 when we look at it later. Now the triggering, where do we want this to trigger? Remember, this is a listening. So the trigger is always listening. Where do we want this event to fire? Well, we only want it to fire after somebody has opted in. How do we know if they've opted in? Well, they are redirected to a specific thank you page. And so I've noted that here, and that's why I said, okay, so this is where the offer is, and then this is where they're redirected after they visit the page. So again, this is just a dummy page, but let's go to hacktics.com/thank you story selling. Okay, so this is a thank you page that I just cooked up for this retargeting IQ demonstration. So we're going to go over to Google Tag Manager. Our trigger is going to not be all pages. What we want to do is create something specific. So this is going to be, I'm going to write page view, thank you storytelling. So that's what I'm saying to myself. So only if somebody views this page, we are going to fire this. So I need to set up a page view, some page views, not all page views. All page views is for Google Analytics. We want to listen to everything, but for this specific trigger to send this specific event, we only want these rules to be here. So this is going to be page URL contains thank you story selling. So that's how we set this up. So then what we're going to do now is, let's say, okay, let's check this over, GA event. Okay, we got our measurement ID in there. The event name is story selling opt-in, and this is going to be our thank you story selling. Okay, safe. Now, one thing that I want to show you before I publish this, before things go live, as soon as I push this button, submit, publish, things go live immediately. And if you've worked on any SaaS teams, if you've worked with anybody else, like you don't just want to publish everything and everything as soon as you just don't want your changes to automatically go live without testing it. So what I want to do before I test this, imagine the things that could happen. Imagine the conversations that I've had. I don't want you to have those conversations. So what we're going to do is we're going to use something called the preview and debug feature in GA4. And sometimes this doesn't work, so being a little vulnerable here, but hopefully that it works. So what we're going to do before we publish, right? So we've created this event, but we haven't published this. And so what we're going to do is we are going to go to preview, and we can type in our website right here. And so I am going to just grab this one more time, this URL, because what we're going to do is visit this. Within this Google Tag Manager preview mode, we're going to hit connect. Then it's going to pull up, and what we're going to see is two things. We are going to see that the tags fired correctly. So tags fired means like, yes, this actually occurred. And then this did as well. So we are good to go. This works. But I want to show you one way to verify, another way I should say, to verify this inside of GA4. So we're going to go to admin right here, and then all the way down to debug view. And what this should do, there it is right there. Perfect. This should automatically pull in these events for you as in preview mode, meaning we haven't made any live changes to the website. So if I go to real time right now, I won't see that this event is actually pushing in. It is just detecting this test. So now that I know that I'm good to go there, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit submit, and then I like to add the version name of added GA4 event, just so I can know what I've been doing and so on and so forth. So now what I could do is I could revisit this page one more time, and I could go into analytics, into reports in real time. Now GA4 is not the best in firing things that are picking up real-time events. So that's why I built a UTM tool that I'll talk about in the next module to help you with this. But right now we do see this. Even though it takes 24 hours to get into your events via admin, we can check this in real time, and we do see that this event is actually firing. And these are the other events that it's just pulling in. So it's not going to pull in a lot of stuff other than what you tell it, but we can see and we can verify that the story selling opt-in has occurred. And so really, what we're really good to go. So let's just do a quick recap. We have created our Google Tag Manager container that now houses all of our pixels moving forward. And what we've done is we've connected it to GA4, and we've also created that event. So if something happens within GA4, we can now send that event into Google Analytics. Now remember, this event is not going to show up. It's going to take 24 hours for it to show up. And so what I'll have to do after this, after 24 hours, is come in here, look for the event, and the event name is, of course, Story Selling Opt-in, because that's the event name that we chose. Then we're going to see that event, and we're going to toggle it on as a conversion. And then after that, we should be able to sort our reports, our user acquisition, according to that according to that conversion event, which is magical, because what we're going to do in the next module is we're going to learn how to attach UTMs to every single thing. So when I go into my Google Analytics, you don't have to be a pro at Google Analytics to just understand like where to look. And where I look is always user acquisition. I sort by source medium, and I sort by campaign. And if you don't know what that is, you will by the end of the next lesson. And then you can just see, perfectly. You can see the conversion rate of Facebook ads, conversion rate of TikTok ads, conversion rate of YouTube, and then go on down. Like, okay, this is conversion rate for the ad set, for the ad. Like, you can become as really granular as possible, and all of this stuff just exists. So Google Tag Manager is an absolutely incredible tool. It feels like a little like you're out of your element if you haven't gotten into it, because it does contain like a little bit of like maybe just vocabulary that you're not used to using, or there's code involved. But like, as you saw, it's pretty much just copy and paste. And like I said, use the process that I have, write it all down here, get it noted, get it documented, so that you can just reference this back and forth. So you're always calling something the same thing. And so what we're going to do in the next module is talk about UTMs, but then we're going to revisit Google Tag Manager again in every single module after that. So we have to go grab our Facebook pixel. We have to put it in Google Tag Manager. We're going to create a custom conversion using something called JSON, which is just, you click that, copy paste. Again, it's not scary at all. you put that into Google Tag Manager. We get our TikTok pixel, we'll put that into Tag Manager. We're going to have to create, for Google Ads, we're going to have to create something called the conversion linker tag, a remarketing tag, and our conversion. And we'll use Google Tag Manager for all of that. So Google Tag Manager is not over, but it's highly important. And I think it's, it's just something that we need to learn how to do and don't shy away from it. And again, you saw how easy this is. If you are an agency, this is something that you could sell that doesn't really take that much effort. Although the effort comes in actually getting it on their website. And I think that is always the tricky part. So that's the one thing that I said at the beginning of this module, and I will repeat it now. Getting Google Tag Manager and GA4 onto your website is always going to be unique and different, whether you're using Shopify, whether you're using Wix, whether you're using WordPress or Squarespace or Go High Level. It's just going to look different for all of those. So I would do a quick search to see what best practice is for that. But at the end of it, we just created our whole data architecture in just like a handful of minutes. So thank you for watching Module 2. This is coming to an end, and I'll see you in the next module of UTMs. And please don't skip it, because it is the sticky piece that connects your clicks all the way to the conversion or the events that we just made in this. So what I will do is I will pause this now. I will revisit this later so that you have a quick update. So I'll basically cut this now. We'll come back in 24 hours. I'll show you how we turn that event back into that conversion in GA4. And then after that, you can move on to Module 3. All right, thanks guys. See ya, bye. So it's now been about 24 hours since I made that last video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my Google Analytics. I'm going to click on Admin and then go to Events. Now we see that story selling opt-in is now here. We can see it. And all that we need to do is now toggle it on as a conversion so that when we go into conversions, we now see this. Then from now on, when we go to reports, we go to acquisition source medium, or user acquisition. We can sort by that source medium. I don't think I've pushed any UTMs through. Let's go to events, and then I can select story selling opt-in. We should see these coming in. Let's go switch to today's date. And we don't see any because nothing has happened since then. So because we just toggled it on as a conversion, it can't go back and find conversions in the past. So we can see that moving forward. So we can see that this event, if we go to story selling opt-in, we'll see that that event has occurred because we fired those events, and it fired yesterday and it detected those. But because it wasn't a conversion, we can't actually go back in time. So just another quick note on that. Be sure to toggle that event into a conversion as soon as possible, because it's not going to capture any of the data in the past, so that we can only see data moving forward. All right, that is how to turn that event into a conversion. So you are now good to go. See you in the next module.